Hidden behind a gentle exterior, a 30-year-old man concealed a horrifying secret: a corpse in the closet. The handsome, kind, and warm facade of a 30-year-old man crumbled when his girlfriend discovered a mysterious, dead body in his wardrobe. The gentle puppy boy turned out to be a vicious devil. His ex-girlfriend, who was over 50, mysteriously vanished after dating him. As police investigated further, the warm man was exposed as a con artist who preyed on women, and a much darker story was waiting to be revealed. The case I'm bringing you today has caused a massive shock in South Korea. This is a serious case, as police discovered another case hidden behind the initial murder, with the possibility of even more victims. This case could become a new script for Korean crime films. The suspect, just over 30 years old, has a good-looking and seemingly gentle appearance. Every photo and surveillance video show him looking completely harmless. But on a recent Christmas Eve, his girlfriend called the police after discovering the body of an unknown man in his apartment closet. Upon further investigation, police found that his previous girlfriend had also been missing for a long time. Not only that, it's possible that his ex-girlfriend before that was also harmed. So what is this entire case about? Let's start with this man. His name is Lee Ki-young, born in 1991, 32 years old at the time of the incident. Lee Ki-young grew up in Paju, 40 kilometers from Seoul, near the North Korean border. He had a girlfriend who was a local karaoke bar hostess. Although they hadn't been dating for long, their relationship progressed very quickly. On December 20th, 2022, Lee Ki-young hosted a barbecue party in Goyong, South Korea, inviting his girlfriend and her parents. Throughout the evening, everyone was happy and relaxed. The girlfriend's parents had a good impression of Lee Ki-young, a tall, thin, and well-spoken young man. After the meal, he saw his girlfriend's parents off. Since he had a lot to drink, his girlfriend advised him to call a designated driver. But Lee Ki-young refused, thinking he wasn't that drunk and could drive himself. The couple argued right in front of the restaurant. In a fit of anger, his girlfriend left on her own. Lee Ki-young didn't care and drove home by himself. Arguments are normal between couples. The next day, Lee Ki-young sobered up and realized his attitude might have been poor yesterday, making his girlfriend angry. To make up, he bought an expensive pair of matching rings, bought a handbag, and took her to luxury restaurants and hotels. He spent 50 million won in just 3 to 4 days to cheer his girlfriend up. On December 25th, Christmas Day, at 11 a.m., Lee Ki-young, who owned 3 cats and a dog, had his girlfriend visit his apartment to feed his cats. While looking for cat food, she accidentally opened her boyfriend's closet and was shocked to discover the body of a middle-aged man. Panicked, she immediately called the police. Why was the body of a man in her boyfriend's closet? What happened? After her girlfriend called the police, Lee Ki-young became the main suspect because he was the one living in the apartment. The police's top priority was to find Lee Ki-young and investigate the victim's identity. A strange coincidence was that early on the same morning, the police station also received a missing person report. The person reporting said that their father, a 60-year-old taxi driver, had gone to work on the 20th and hadn't returned. His phone was unreachable, and the family could only message him. However, the tone of the messages was not like him. 5 days had passed, and the family was so worried they called the police.
A missing person report for a 60-year-old father and a call about the body of an older man suddenly appearing in an apartment. Were the two cases related? Police compared the details and quickly confirmed that the body in Lee Ki-young's apartment was indeed the taxi driver who had been missing for 5 days. The forensic doctor confirmed that the man had died between December 20 and 21. Police also found the taxi driver's phone on Lee Ki-young. Lee Ki-young's arrest was also quite dramatic. On the day his girlfriend called the police, he was drinking with some friends at a barbecue restaurant. Surveillance cameras recorded him arguing and fighting with someone else after getting drunk, injuring his hand. Police arrested Lee Ki-young at the hospital while he was getting his hand bandaged. Police were very puzzled. A young man and a middle-aged taxi driver who didn't know each other. Why did Lee Ki-young treat the driver so brutally? In the subsequent interrogation, faced with irrefutable evidence, Lee Ki-young quickly confessed to the events of the case. On the 20th, after having dinner with his girlfriend's family and arguing with her, Lee Ki-young drove home despite having a lot to drink. At 11 p.m., he drove to an intersection, turned right, and hit the victim's car. Lee Ki-young was stunned. South Korean law has very severe penalties for drunk driving. If the alcohol content is below 0.2%, the penalty is less than 6 months in prison. If it's over 0.2%, the penalty is 1 to 3 years in prison and a fine of 5 to 10 million won. This was a consequence Lee Ki-young could not afford because he was a repeat offender. Previously, he had been caught 3 times for drunk driving in 2013, 2018, and 2019. According to South Korean law, if you have 3 drunk driving offenses or refuse a breathalyzer test, you will receive the highest penalty. The 3rd time he was caught in 2019, Lee Ki-young had to serve 1 year in prison. Despite paying such a heavy price, he still hadn't learned his lesson. Frightened, Lee Ki-young offered the driver a private settlement and a large sum of money if he didn't report him to the police. The driver agreed. Lee Ki-young said he didn't have enough cash and asked the driver to go back to his home to get the money. Surveillance cameras recorded the 2 cars following each other into Lee Ki-young's apartment in Paju in the early hours of the morning. According to his confession, when they got to the apartment, the driver demanded too much money and threatened to call the police if Lee Ki-young didn't pay. In a fit of rage, he used a weapon to kill him and hid the body in the closet. Lee Ki-young took the victim's credit card, phone, and other valuables. He used the victim's phone to keep in contact with the victim's family. But the more you say, the more likely you are to be exposed. The family discovered that the tone of the taxi driver's messages on the chat app was unusual. Even when the family wanted to call, he insisted on texting, giving excuses like "I'm busy" or "my phone is about to die." After 5 days, the family grew more suspicious and called the police in the early morning of the 25th. The case was quickly solved. When police checked the victim's credit card usage history, they found that Lee Ki-young had used it repeatedly, spending tens of millions of won. He also used the victim's phone to borrow tens of millions of won. In just 5 days, the money he conned reached 50 million won. So where did all that money go? It turned out that the rings, luxury handbags, and fancy meals and hotels he bought to make up with his girlfriend were all paid for with the victim's money. The police thought that Lee Ki-young, who had a harmless appearance, was actually a demon. He had 3 drunk driving offenses and even served over a year in prison, but still didn't change. He showed no fear after murdering the driver. He used the victim's money to party and splurge. Even with a dead body in his closet, he showed no sign of psychological burden. In fact, right before his arrest, he was still drinking and fighting. This was truly unusual. How could Lee Ki-young be so calm?
Although the case was quickly solved, police suspected that Lee Ki-young had more secrets yet to be revealed. Police began to investigate more deeply. In the eyes of his neighbors, Lee Ki-young was a good guy. He always smiled and greeted his neighbors. With his good looks and demeanor, everyone had a good impression of him. He owned a dog and often walked it. When he took the elevator, he would always pull the dog in to make room for others. He was very polite and seemed like a warm person. But his former schoolmates and military comrades had a very bad impression of him. The main reason was that Lee Ki-young loved to brag and make up stories. In front of acquaintances, he would always claim to be the youngest son of a wealthy family, boasting that his grandfather was very rich and he would inherit a building. But in reality, he had no money. According to a person who served in the military with him, Lee Ki-young served beyond his term. Most Korean men are discharged after completing their military service. Those who don't get discharged and stay on often come from difficult family backgrounds. Lee Ki-young didn't get discharged and continued to serve. He also borrowed money from many comrades. His comrades found it strange and guessed that his family wasn't well off, and he was just pretending to be rich out of an inferiority complex. When police understood more about Lee Ki-young's situation, they made a discovery that shocked all of South Korea and exposed his true crimes. The apartment where Lee Ki-young committed the murder and hid the body did not belong to him, but to a woman in her 50s. When police asked who the woman was, he said she was his ex-girlfriend and they had lived together. Police tried to find this woman but couldn't contact her. She seemed to have vanished, and the phone Lee Ki-young was using also belonged to his ex-girlfriend. This was terrifying. Lee Ki-young's ex-girlfriend was over 50, while he was just over 30. When they were together, Lee Ki-young played the role of a puppy boy and lived off his girlfriend's money. His ex-girlfriend was also a karaoke bar hostess, just like his current girlfriend.
Lee Ki-young had no job, but still maintained the image of a wealthy heir by being a parasite, living off his ex-girlfriend. Since his ex-girlfriend had been missing since August 2022 and her phone was found on Lee Ki-young, police interrogated him. He confessed to harming his ex-girlfriend in August. Lee Ki-young said they had a big argument and he accidentally threw a hammer at his girlfriend's head, killing her. He said it was not intentional, but the police didn't think so. What's more, he disposed of his ex-girlfriend's body in the Gangnam River in Paju. Police mobilized over 100 people to search for the body, but more than 4 months had passed, during which there had been heavy rain and harsh weather, making finding the body like looking for a needle in the haystack. After multiple unsuccessful searches, police speculated the body might have drifted into the Han River. While police were searching, Lee Ki-young changed his confession, saying the body was buried on the riverbank. Police again deployed excavators and continued the search, but still found nothing. Police learned that during his relationship with his ex-girlfriend, Lee Ki-young had borrowed over 300 million won to splurge. If the relationship changed, his ex-girlfriend would surely demand the money back. Police believe this was the reason for the murder. After killing and disposing of the body, he pretended his ex-girlfriend was still alive by using her phone, even changing her social media profile picture twice and messaging her friends. He also took over her apartment and used her name to borrow nearly 100 million won on credit cards. This method was exactly the same as the taxi driver case. What's even more terrifying is that in mid-September 2022, a month after killing his ex-girlfriend, Lee Ki-young bragged to a friend that he had inherited a large sum of money. The friend found his behavior strange, because when you inherit something, it means a relative has passed away, but he wasn't sad at all and seemed very excited. After the case broke, the friend finally understood that the large sum of money was the money he borrowed on credit cards after killing his ex-girlfriend.
Although his ex-girlfriend's body was not found, police were still able to prove the murder through Lee Ki-young's confession and other circumstantial evidence. The truth seemed to be exposed, but the more terrifying mysteries were just beginning. During the investigation, police found many suspicious points in Lee Ki-young's behavior and confessions. Among his belongings, police also found another woman's mobile phone, but this woman was also unreachable. This pattern was almost a replica of the ex-girlfriend and taxi driver cases. In Lee Ki-young's apartment, police collected the DNA of one man and 3 other women besides Lee Ki-young. They are in the process of identifying them. The case is expanding, and all signs indicate he may have committed more crimes. With what has been revealed, in South Korea, the crime of robbery and murder can be punished with life imprisonment or the death penalty. Murder can be punished with 5 years of imprisonment or more, and the highest is the death penalty. It's difficult for Lee Ki-young to escape the death penalty. However, it's worth noting that South Korea has not carried out an execution in the past 20 years. From December 1997 until now, 61 people have been sentenced to death, but none have been executed. The government has not officially announced the abolition of the death penalty. After such 2 serious cases, Lee Ki-young showed no remorse for what he had done. After committing the crimes, he continued to party and splurge without any guilt. When police were searching for his ex-girlfriend's body, Korean television stations broadcast the scene live. After rewatching a few hours of the broadcast, I couldn't see a single trace of remorse or guilt on his face. If it weren't for the handcuffs, I would have thought he was discussing a plan with a colleague. This is truly terrifying. The man who was a warm person in the eyes of his neighbors and a handsome puppy boy in the eyes of his ex-girlfriend, inside him, there was only darkness.